CBC News is calling Donald Trump the winner of the state of Wisconsin, another of those 7 key battleground states. And there on the bottom of your screen, you see the number from Wisconsin, the 10 electoral college votes in Wisconsin, takes him above the 270 electoral college vote threshold and takes him into the White House. Donald J. Trump will be the next U.S. president. He becomes the leader of the world's most powerful nation for a second time, 45 and now 47. He is the first former president in the modern era to be elected again after losing an election. That has not happened in almost 130 years. You have to go back to the presidencies of Grover Cleveland. Trump's return to the White House is marked by other firsts. He will be the first twice impeached president to be reelected. He will be the first president convicted in a criminal court and found liable in civil court. He is still facing a federal indictment and potential trial over allegations he tried to overturn the 2020 election. Now he has won the 2024 race, and he will be, as I mentioned, the 47th president of the United States. Governing with a mandate from Americans voting for his promise of prosperity and deep tax cuts. That pledge could come with profound consequences for Canada. Trump says he'll bring in tariffs that could disrupt Canadian trade with the United States and Ottawa's relations with Washington. There are dark clouds, too, in Trump's vow to make America great again. He's vowing to stop illegal migrants with an unprecedented crackdown and deportation, saying he will begin rounding up millions of people on the first day of his presidency. In his speech early this morning, Trump says he will bring the country together, saying he will be united and will unite Americans of all background in common cause. Donald J. Trump, the 47th president of the United States, our chief correspondent, Adrian Arsenault, who brought us the exceptional special coverage all through those early morning hours, still up at 5:36 and with me at this moment, historic moment. Sum it up.
Absolutely historic moment. Donald Trump did what he said he would do. You went through the reasons why this is history. Not since Grover Cleveland has a president become a president again, with a period in between where he was not. Oldest man to ever become president. When you talk about a day like this, there are a combination of things you talk about. There is the fact that Donald Trump won handily.
And popular vote.
For the first time. He always wanted that, right? Mm-hmm. He didn't get the popular vote in 2016, certainly didn't get it in 2020. That he won it now, that it is entirely possible he sweeps all 3 levels of the U.S. government.
I mean, that is the extraordinary thing. Executive branch, legislative branch, Senate is flipped, House looks to be holding, and of course he's appointed Supreme Court justices in the judicial branch, and there are 2 more to come.
That's right. Clarence Thomas and Justice Sotomayor, maybe another opportunity for him to appoint 2 more. So interesting watching him speak tonight. He was riffing like he does at all of his campaign events, the 901 he says he has done, talking about Elon Musk, talking about RFK Jr., unleashed. We were sitting with a Republican strategist who said, well, I hope he takes the opportunity to reach out to all Americans and to, take a more calming tone. But he does what he wants to do, and now he can do what he wants to do. It's interesting that, in 2012, when the Republicans lost to Barack Obama for the second time, they had this big meeting, and they were like, what is wrong with the Republican Party? Why can't we capture Americans? And they made a promise that they would try to widen the tent and bring in more Latinos, more Black Americans, more women. And it never really worked for them. And doing it in a way that was considered embracing didn't really work. Donald Trump figured it out. We're still waiting to see the different tabs, the individual tabs on who voted where. Mm-hmm. But certainly, he made enormous breakthroughs with the Latino population. Mm-hmm. That's going to be baffling for some in the Democratic Party. What about what he said at Madison Square Gardens? Mm-hmm. All those things that they said were disqualifying about Donald Trump, the way he talks about people, the threat to democracy, the allegations of fascism, that he's going to ruin the American reputation, none of that was disqualifying for the American people, for the voters.
It all comes back to James Carville, doesn't it? It's the economy, stupid.
Absolutely.
I mean, that was for the Democrat side of things, but the perception that they were not doing as well under Biden and would do better again under Trump, that seemed to be the number one issue as they went into those battlegrounds.
It was his closing argument. Mm-hmm. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? That is one of the oldest lines in American politics. Mm-hmm. He certainly didn't invent that line. And as you say, Carville's "It's the economy, stupid." At the end of the day, that's what it boiled down to. And interestingly, you know, people were saying, but the gas prices, but the grocery prices. American presidents have actually very little sway over what happens in gas prices and grocery prices, but people attached it to Kamala Harris. Mm-hmm. And she could not detach herself from Joe Biden. Did she even try sufficiently? I mean, Katie Simpson's talking about the heavy conversations mm-hmm. ahead for Democrats. That might be part of it. Did she feel, I don't know, a loyalty or whatever, but why did she not seek to more significantly distance herself from the Biden administration? Possibly because she's still in it, you know, because she's still vice president. Mm-hmm. This is really, it's a tough line. This is really a tough one for her. Also in the, you know, such a truncated campaign. There's going to be so much blame going around the Democratic Party. Point. So short. Could anyone have done any better in that time? Did Joe Biden stay too long? Mm-hmm. These will be so many questions. What about for Canada? What do you, from your discussions tonight, what are you thinking now for the Canadian relationship and challenges for this country? Well, lots of lessons for Canada in this. You know, I think the Canadian government, as it currently exists, the Liberal government, will be able to go into their phones and pull out a list of numbers that they have for people in the first Trump administration. Jared Kushner, they'll be calling him very quickly. Robert Lighthizer, who negotiated we don't call it USMCA. That's right. What the Americans call it, but the new NAFTA, if you will. They will be hoping he comes back. So there is a perception that regardless of how the public relationship played out, and it was very contentious, in private, Canada seemed to be able to make it work. There was a whole entity in Ottawa that was dedicated strictly to Canada's relationship with the Trump administration and with Donald Trump. They will be revving up the engines and starting that again. This is a known entity for them. Maybe it's okay. The other lesson, though, is why didn't it work for the Democrats? The Liberal Party will be looking at this. Is there a lesson there? The Conservative Party will be like, do you hear what I hear from south of the border? The whole common sense language. The Conservative Party will be saying, aha, we're onto something. Yes, from the Liberal side of things, I think there's some within the Democrats, at least based on some of the analysis that I've been reading. Did we move too far to the left? Were we too progressive on things? Did we lose the center? So that may be part of the discussion. Again, as you said, a Liberal is listening. One of the things that we talked about in these days, the gender gap. You know, somebody gave me a T-shirt yesterday that said POTUS with the O in the female symbol because they were so confident Kamala Harris was going to win. They wanted me to have this T-shirt. Echoes of 2016. That. Exactly. And you know, people will be deflated in a similar manner. What does this say? I mean, we young women went for Trump. A lot of them went for Trump, even with abortion and reproductive freedom on the ballot. Well, maybe it wasn't on the ballot, is what Donald Trump would say. Maybe, again, like democracy, reproductive rights were not the thing that was top of mind when people when they were in that private moment in the polling booth. Maybe that's not the narrative that locked in with Americans. Maybe at the end of the day it was like, these things are really important, but you know what? I don't think I can pay my rent. And I don't know, this guy says he's going to fix it. Kamala broke it as VP. Trump will fix it. You know what? Maybe he will. I need to believe in something. This is not working. She's part of an administration that saw, for me personally, very difficult times. In a weird way, even though he was president, he doesn't look like an incumbent to me. This is a year, 2024, more elections around the world than at any other time in decades and decades and decades. Almost every story of every election has been what the CBC former Ottawa bureau chief Rob Russo used to say, a throw the bums out election. Had enough of incumbents. We're seeing that pattern again and again. who was the incumbent this time, even though Trump was president? Kamala Harris.
I'm going to play a little bit of tape for you. I don't know if you can hear, but
can.
I'll tell you what. Okay.
Okay.
One of the things that's interesting, again, in the analysis that will come from the Democrat side of things, Joe Biden, did he leave too late? There was no contested convention. There was no primary, and Kamala Harris became. He selected her to carry it on. We have David Cochran, part of your show, when he was talking to young voters, this is what one of them told him about why she couldn't support Kamala Harris. Let's listen to that and we'll talk about it.
Well, the reason why I don't think Kamala got my vote is because I feel like everything she does is pretty phony. I mean, I just watch her and it's easy to realize that she really doesn't even know really what she's talking about.
So that was interesting. He had amazing guests as part of the discussion. So she was phony. She doesn't know what she's talking about. This is an eminently qualified woman, extraordinary background, but she never did lay out her vision, I think, satisfactorily to many voters. But phony. So Donald Trump, you know who he is.
He tells you exactly who he is. And the thing is about young voters is that Democrats believed that they would see in Kamala Harris a new day, particularly women, and that would carry the day. But young voters did not break for Kamala Harris. They broke for Donald Trump. And what we have heard, throughout this night and throughout the last few weeks, all the stuff about Taylor Swift, Beyonce, these huge celebrity endorsements, doesn't help people see themselves, perhaps, reflected in that candidacy. It's like, well, my friends aren't hanging out with Taylor Swift or Oprah or have all these big names. That doesn't look like my life. But along comes a guy who talks plain talk, and he's a bit crass, and he's relatable, and he's a bit funny, and he's not polished, and oh my God, he survived an assassination attempt and created a political moment for the ages. That image of Donald Trump with his fist in the air and the blood down his face will go down in American political history as a pivotal image that crystallized what that man is to the people who follow him. There was, beyond the messianic feeling of the RNC, there was this, hey, he talks like my Uncle Joe. And at the end of the day, they saw authenticity. American voters saw authenticity in Donald Trump and a storyteller. And Democrats get blamed all the time for being technocrats. They'll come at you with binders full of charts to convince you of legitimately what is the truth. But if it doesn't feel like the truth, if it doesn't feel like it connects with you, and maybe it just doesn't.